Good morning, everyone. On behalf of everyone here at the Crest Network, my name is Bill Giano, and I'd love to welcome you to today's webinar entitled, What Motivates You? How to Play to Your Strengths as an Owner or Manager. And I really don't want to leave anybody out on this one because part of what we're going to talk about in terms of motivation is applicable to anyone. If you're the quote unquote low man on the totem pole at your company, or you're working your way up, or if you're just kind of driving yourself, understanding what motivates you can have a very large part to play in how you go about your daily activities. So I really want to make sure that we don't leave anybody out. And if it seems like it's talking to you, I want you to accept it. I want you to see where this can take you, because I think there's some really good concepts in here that can make you take maybe a different or a second look at what's going on in your work life. I'm going to start with a sobering thought. You know me, I'm usually Mr. Practicality, and I'm going to start with something very sobering. Your business today is a perfect reflection of what you have allowed it to be. Sometimes that's one of the most difficult things that I will tell an owner or a manager of a business, because they want to come to me and they want me to solve the problems. And usually the first step in any kind of recovery or correction is to admit you have a problem. Owners are very quick to admit they have problems. Where they seem to have issues is understanding that not necessarily that they are the root cause of the problem, but that they are allowing that problem to exist in the first place. Everything that happens in your company, you usually see it or you know about it. So when I say that your company is a perfect reflection of what you have allowed it to be, I mean that if it's chaotic, there's a really good chance that you are treating it as chaotic and you are not focusing yourself on the things that are the most important for your company. Once we accept this and once we come to this realization, we absolutely are going to be able to make some valuable changes. Before you can change your business, you have to accept and embrace who you are. Many times we want to hide who we really are, and we want our business to not reflect who we are. And I don't care what business you're in. If you're trying to operate your business without putting yourself into it, you're going to fail. For most of us in the restoration industry, even if we're in franchises, our businesses are still very personal and they are not objective. They're very subjective in how they operate. We're not a Chick-fil-A or a McDonald's where everything's identical and we're just kind of rubber stamping. Even within, if you're a ServPro, even within the ServPro model, there's a lot of flexibility that goes on that allows individuals to make their company more about them. Let's understand that. You have to accept who you are, and I even submit that you have to embrace who you are. You have to figure out what motivates you, and then you have to use that knowledge to motivate others. I'm going to say that again. Figure out what motivates you, and then use that to motivate others within your team. We're going to get into this really quick. There are four main motivating factors for successful business owners or managers. Again, this applies to individual workers as well. You have to ask yourself, which one of these reflects you? Which one of these can you embrace? The first motivating factor is self-worth. Someone who wants to prove what they can do out there. We're going to get into each of these in detail. The second motivating factor is financial security. The third motivating factor is giving back to the community. And finally, the fourth motivating factor is pleasing our customers. There was a survey done a couple of years ago by a group called Manta. Now, Manta is an agency that gathers a lot of data on small businesses, mostly privately owned businesses. And they're a website, and they gather data on millions and millions of those businesses. Well, about 5 years ago, they grouped up with Dell Computers and they put out a survey to small business owners, and they got tens of thousands of responses. And I'm putting these four up here because these were the four largest responded to answers. a full 37% of the respondents said that they were motivated by their self-worth. The number fell to 28% who were motivated in running their and operating their business by financial security. Number three was the giving back to the community. That fell in at 12%, and 10% said that their number one motivating factor was pleasing customers. Any other choice fell way below this list. So we're going to concentrate on these four because these take into account fully 3/4 to almost 90% of all the respondents. So we're going to discuss these four. Let's see if you fall into any one of these. We'll start with self-worth because that was, again, the number one response. Over a third of the respondents said that self-worth was their driving factor. Well, self-worth can take on many different definitions. So if you're not sure, let's see if these fit into one of your definitions. The first definition would be taking on a challenge. You like to challenge yourself. You're a guy who likes to do puzzles. You're a guy who in his spare time likes to build things, likes to take on new opportunities. So taking on a challenge, building a company. Maybe you're into egotism. So you're very ego driven. You're very about pushing yourself, letting others know how great you are. Remember, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. You need to embrace it if that's what you're about. If you're about showing others how great you are, that's okay. You need to embrace that. That's what self-worth would be about. Pushing myself to new heights. Are you the type of person who always wants to do bigger and better? Are you the type of person who gets bored really quickly? Finally, are you the type of person who needs to prove yourself to others? Either proving to others or proving it to yourself. You see something and you say, wow, that's a real challenge. I'm going to try to do it. There are people who are marathon runners who start out by running a mile. And after a year or so, now they're running a marathon. Why did they do it? Not to get in shape, not to do anything other than to prove they could do it. You know, many people find themselves struggling with addictions of various kinds. And part of going into recovery is to make their lives better. Obviously, everybody wants to live a better life, and you want to free yourself from any kind of constraints that can hold you back. But part of motivating a lot of times for people to go into recovery is the need to prove to themselves that they can live without that crutch, without that specific addiction. It's okay. I'm telling you, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button there. I'm telling you that there is no better or worse motivation necessarily. Just make sure you can identify and be honest about your motivation. Your biggest goal as a leader, whether you're leading one person or a company of 1,000, is to make sure that you're leading with clarity. If your message isn't clear, it should be almost impossible for anybody on your team to try to follow it. You need to make sure you speak with clarity, even if it's not your actual words, if it's the tone, if it's the mission of your company, you have to speak with clarity. Okay? Don't beat yourself up. If you fall into this category where you're very into what people think of you, or you're just constantly pushing yourself, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. We're going to talk about financial security now. The same exact thing applies here. If financial security is your motivating factor, it's okay. This takes on a lot of other meanings as well. Taking care of my family. You'll hear a lot of guys say that. Oh, I started a business because I wanted to take care of my family. Great, great suggestion. And I'm not, when I say guys, I'm not trying to make this a sex differential. Guys is kind of a catch-all for me. When I say guys, it includes women as well. Anyone who goes out and wants to do better for their family, I absolutely respect that. If that's your motivating factor for getting up in the morning and for owning a business and for investing time and hours and sweat into it, congratulations. Greed, it's okay to admit that you're greedy. It's okay to admit that you want to make as much money as possible. There's nothing wrong with that. Those of you who know me know that I spent 25 years on Wall Street, and in the movie Wall Street, Michael Douglas is famous for making that statement. He says, greed is good, greed works. The precept of greed can work as long as you don't corrupt your morals in order to attain your riches. That's obviously one message that Michael Douglas's character forgot about in that movie. But you're allowed to be greedy. You're allowed to say, I want a very, very large end result. I want to cash for this. That's fine. The motivation of not working for a paycheck, owning your own company so that you're not working for someone else and you're really working for yourself, that's part of this financial security. Rather than relying on someone else to write you a check, you're writing your own check. That's perfectly acceptable as well. Finally, leveraging growth. If you're working for someone else, it's really difficult to leverage your time or leverage your ability to grow financially because you're beholden to that one person. There are many Crest members that Dick and I work with on a weekly basis who have their hand in a lot of different pots. They might own a restoration company and we're assisting and coaching them with that, but they're also involved in many other ventures. That's part of financial security. You can only do that through owning a business or operating a business the way you do. It's important to understand that. Once again, if you're driven by money, embrace that fact. Don't run away from that. If you run away from that, you're going to be lying to yourself, and your message to your workers, to your teams, and your mission of a company will not be clear to them. We already discussed how important it is to stay with a clear message. So embrace it, get comfortable with your desires. That will allow you to manage your business in a way that reflects your will and gives your team's goal and purpose. Remember, just think about if your first motivation, which was ego, if it's about ego and getting the pats on the back, at the end of the day, all you care about is getting that work done so it reflects well on you. That would be group one. Many times that doesn't involve making a good profit. Oh, I don't care what it costs, just make me look good. See what that motivating factor is? That mission for a company is different than I want you to have processes in place that maximize the profit. Okay. I'm not saying profit at all cost. I'm not saying profit without quality. And I'm not saying that you can't have a mix of those feelings. I'm just saying you have to figure out what your primary motivating cause is and then embrace it. We're going to move on to giving back. If you're a person who believes in giving back, you're about your community image. You're about what do you look like to the community? And it's not necessarily you individually, it's your company image. Some people worry a lot about the company image. We hear it all the time. If you're a fan of the NFL, you hear all the time that every decision that is made by the executives in the NFL is made with one purpose. And the term they use is protecting the shield, that little emblem of the NFL, their logo. Every decision they make is about protecting the shield. They care more about their image than they do about the dollars and cents, because there's plenty of dollars and cents that flow from that business when their image is good. When their image gets tarnished, like years ago, the whole scandal and the back and forth about the kneeling, they really had a very difficult time because they started to suffer with revenue and they had to worry about what message and perception they were putting out. So their decisions that they were making were made about protecting their image rather than quote unquote doing what's right or maximizing dollars. It was kind of a combination of all, but they really cared about their image because at this point they are a business driven by image. So you could be that kind of a business that you care about your community image. You might just be that type of a person who likes doing the right thing. They call that altruism. You're very altruistic. You just want to do the right thing. And most times, and I hate to say this, I'm not knocking you if this is your motivating factor. We can still have a very successful, profitable business and feel great about it and be altruistic. The real truth is, if you're an altruistic business owner, there's a really good chance that you're operating more as a not-for-profit than you are specifically in our industry, where the gross profits, at least, are usually pretty high. That's just an observation on my part. You also are someone who truly believes in a cause bigger than yourself. If you work with a faith-based background, most faith-based people will want to live their lives knowing that it's not about them and that there is a cause much bigger than themselves. If you want to call it a higher power, if you're a believer like that, or if you just want to say that, you're a little speck on this planet and you're here to serve others, that's great. That's terrific. That's part of this whole idea about the giving back motivation. Embrace that. It doesn't mean you can't make a nice profit. It just means that your motivating factor and the thing that's going to drive your business should be geared around that. That's going to make it more effective. Remember, find your spot, stake your claim, and work towards a better tomorrow for everyone if this is you. But P.S., make sure you tell your team this. You might have a whole bunch of people on your team who think and hope and wish that you're motivated by dollars and cents because they want to be along for the ride and they're hoping for that, what they used to refer to in economics as the trickle down effect. They're hoping that if you make a ton of money, some of it's going to end up in their pockets. If you are not that type of person who's driven by the money, your workers need to understand that because they can't give you the best effort unless they understand exactly what you're asking from them. I know this all sounds a little counterintuitive from a guy on Wall Street who's all about the dollars, but this is more about what motivates you and you figuring that out because there are many ways to get to the end result. There are many roads that can lead to success. Finally, the fourth choice that the respondents in that survey chose was customer service. They really cared about what the customer thought about them. They cared about providing the best possible experience for the customer. So if that's your motivation, you're probably about serving others. There's a really good chance that, when you were in high school and college, you probably delivered papers or you were a waitress and you found yourself drawn towards serving others. When it came time, you picked a service business. Restoration is, after all, a service business. We're not a B2B necessarily, but even if you're a B2B, your customer is another business. So you're about service, serving others. You're about being a people pleaser. Maybe you're that kind of a person. Remember, this is not derogatory. I called somebody greedy before, and I didn't mean it to be derogatory. If you're a people pleaser, that's what your makeup is. That's truly what you're about. It's important to embrace that. I love making people happy. That's okay. There's a place for you in our industry. Feeling good about doing good. There's absolutely a place in our industry for this. But if that's your top motivating factor, embrace that, grab that. You might be somebody who has what they call old world business ethics. Business in the old days, and Dick and I are both old enough where we can tell you what business was like in the 70s, which doesn't sound like it's that long ago, but guys, that's 50 years ago. Many of you were not even born. Dick and I were involved in business in the 70s. We remember what the ethics were. When I started in business, my goal was to work for the same company for 45 years. And when I retired, get a gold watch and a nice little party. That's old world. The business ethics of old world was you take care of the customer, and that's a long-term relationship. We're not transactional people. There was no internet. There was no ability to go on Amazon and look for something that's 5 cents cheaper because it's all about price. The product is the product. No, the product was different back then. The relationships were different back then. You might be that kind of a person. That's okay. You're going to have to change all of those thought processes. Dick and I teach a class where we give out a certification for a restoration marketing specialist. And it's a 3-day intense class. And over 2 days of that class involves new techniques that don't work if you're an old world business person. So you might need to learn new techniques, but your philosophy and your foundational core can still exist and be very successful in our business. You need to understand that. For you, no reward is as great as that 5-star recommendation. So when your client's happy, everything's right. You need to design your company's mission, focus, and training around those values. It's just that simple, guys. I've given you all four. I've told you about all four of these: self-worth, financial security, giving back, and the customer service. You need to ask yourself that question again. What motivates you? I'm literally going to give you 30 seconds to mull it over. I want you to really, really deeply think about it, because we're going to get into something else that's going to happen once you accept who you are. There's going to be some steps we're going to follow. You need to make sure that you are fully and 100% positively committed to which one of these four you are. And then we're going to be able to move forward. Give yourself about 15 seconds now. Now that we've had that nice little break, we're going to be able to do this. Once we know it's time to check yourself, we're going to take 7 steps that are going to turn our motivation into action. These 7 steps are the same 7, regardless of which one of those 4 categories that you fall into. These 7 steps are vital. You need to do these steps in order, and you need to make sure that they're part of your daily, monthly, and yearly planning. We're going to start with step number 1, get back to your mission. There's a really, really good chance, if you're not currently working with Dick and myself through our elite coaching here at the Crest Network, that somehow, some way, you've gotten away from your mission slightly. And what I mean by that is there's a really good chance that your company has adapted away from why you started it. If you're one of those 4, let's just say you picked the financial security because you really want to take care of your family. You're probably not operating your company maximum to their capabilities so that your financial security is in the best hands. You're probably taking some chances. You're probably taking some shortcuts. You're probably not getting the best dollar value out of every dollar you're putting into your company. So we need to get back to our mission. Once you accept what motivates you, it's time to make your company reflect that mission. So let's look at the structure of your company. Let's look at your processes. Let's look at your practices, and let's look at your messaging. If it's all about the client, does your marketing reflect that? If it's all about your ego, does your marketing reflect that? Remember, that's what we're talking about. Everything should reflect your mission, because everything in your company has to be comfortable to you. If you're someone who's driven by money, but you're trying to make your marketing efforts look like all we care about is the customer, guess what, guys? Nobody's going to buy it, because the people delivering the message, including yourself, don't truly believe it. If Dick is working with your marketers and your marketers are being told it's all about the customer, it's all about the customer, but they know the owner is really pushing them to make more and more and more money for the owner, do you think they're really going to sell well? Dick will tell you absolutely not. But Dick will also tell you that if it's all about money, there are things he can do to work with the marketers to make sure the message is clear that the company is all about doing the job great, doing the job efficiently. See, there's different messaging tools there, which we didn't say we care about you. It's a different slant on the words, it's a different tone. But that tone can be delivered much more convincingly and as part of a greater mission. It's really important that you do that. Do your processes, practices, and messages align with your mission? If not, you need to start there. If your steps are all about customer happiness, then your process out in the field has to reflect that. It has to be very conversational. You have to make sure you're sharing everything you're doing with them, making sure they're comfortable with every step you're taking. You have to make sure that you're sharing with them choices. Make sure that even if it's going to cost you more money, if all you care about is the customer, make sure you're sharing some choices with them. Make sure that you understand that your guys aren't supposed to get in, get out in 3 days if it's all about the customer. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's just hard to hear the words and then to try to make that change. But you've got to start with your mission. Start right there. After that, you've got to get organized. You can't get from step 1 to step 7 to attain your goals and to make your company a better reflection of you without a plan. So now is the perfect time, while you're getting back to your mission, to get yourself organized. Your warehouse, your office, all the way down to your desk, they should reflect a clear, thought out plan. If there's chaos in the trucks, if there's chaos in the warehouse, and if there's piles of papers on your desk, that reflects the chaos going on inside of you. And that is the reflection that goes back onto your company. We need to make sure we work with that chaos. Don't embrace it and say, oh, this is just who I am. I know where everything is. See, when you say that, you're giving us a really good tell into what you're really all about. You're not about building a company at that point, because if you say, I know where everything is, or I can handle it, that doesn't mean everybody else can. Getting organized is the single greatest gift you can give yourself for the next steps. It gives you so much greater ability to focus, to plan, and to take those thoughts and goals and put them into what I say here are tangible action plans. That's a really important word. It's one thing to sit there and say, oh, these are my goals. And then you take the goals and you want to put them on paper, right? Goals are just dreams unless they're written down. But writing them down, just simply writing them down and saying, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30, it doesn't make it so. You need tangible action plans. They need to be realistic plans. They need to be able to be executed, and they need to have a good timetable around them. So let's make sure we're not just doing it for the sake of doing it, guys. Everything has to start with your mission, and then you have to get organized. Step 3, work hard in short spurts. This one's really interesting. Working hard is one thing. Everybody always says, nothing replaces hard work. They're right. The owner should be the hardest working person in the company. Physically, I don't agree with that, but yes, they need to care more than anyone else. If the owner doesn't care more than his managers and his workers, he absolutely should not own the company. So yes, in that part, the owner should be the hardest worker. The owner should care the most. But I put in here short spurts. This is my experience. When you put forth a really great effort, and then you allow yourself the time to reflect, many times you're going to be far greater ahead than if you had just put your head down and kept working. What's the one thing that we always say about people who put their head down and just work tirelessly? They're great, great workers, but many times because their head is down, they have no idea where they're going. Life isn't like bumper bowling where they have protections on the sides to keep your ball from going in the gutter. We could be operating at where we think we're working as hard as possible, but just one tiny little veer or one tiny little distraction could take us far off the path that we intended. So to me, it's important to work really hard in spurts and then take a little time to assess and be able to adjust. Then you go back to sprinting again. Work hard, rest. During that rest period, assess and adjust. Very, very, very important. It's very, very important to be able to assess. If you don't assess, you could literally be driving yourself in a terrible direction. I'm going to give you a real quick story. I got in this industry about 12 years ago. One of the first clients I worked with, I didn't know anything about restoration, but I had run a small business when I was on Wall Street. I owned my own business with about 40 employees, decent sized business. So I had some background and expertise. I also had an economics degree. So I thought I would take, my skill sets out to help other small businesses. Well, one of the first clients I got in this industry was a company that just needed help in the office. They thought they were doing a great job out in the field and they just needed help with their numbers. Well, in the first year when I helped them, they literally doubled their business. By the time I got around to looking at what they were doing out in the field, they were so far from their mission and their goals out in the field on the production side of the business that we were really close to being bankrupt. And yet, when I was in the office for a year, I looked at what was going on and I'm like, this is fantastic. I felt great. The ego side of me is like, yeah, I knew I could do it for you. And I feel great. And you should be patting me on the back as hard as I'm patting myself on the back. When it finally came time to start integrating the other parts of their business into what we had looked at and have this other part of the plan, I was humbled pretty quickly because when we started to assess, that adjustment was very severe. And we were very, very lucky that we weren't in much worse position. I don't want to get into specifics about how that happened. Let's just say that my ability to look at the numbers was only part of the story. And we all know that every business is made up of the numbers, and it's also made up of the things that generate those numbers. So in the 12 years I've been in the industry, I've become much more sensitive to not just the numbers, but how we arrive at those numbers. And that has really made the difference for me because I'm able to now be that guy that floors it and then takes the foot off the pedal. And as we're coasting, we don't stop, we coast, but we're taking that time to assess and adjust. Remember, guys, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Nobody owns a business thinking they're going to get rich in 3 months. If you do, you're probably in some sort of Ponzi scheme, and that's your business. It's a marathon. Treat it as such. It's really important. Step 4, connect with your clients. I don't care if your last inkling is the fourth motivating factor, which is I care about my clients. I don't care what it is. We are in a service industry. No matter what you feel about your clients, no company can survive without a great customer relationship, without a great customer base. Now, in water damage restoration, who are our clients? Yes, the person who signs our work authorization and the person who pays us ultimately is our client. There's no getting around that. But remember something, much of what we do on the water restoration mitigation side comes from referrals. I would put it out there that if you're getting a lot of work from plumbers, brokers, and agents, that those lead generation sources are your clients as well. I think it's very important to understand that. So when I say connect with the end user, the homeowner who signs your contract, but also connect with your lead sources. It's very important for you to know what makes them tick, what makes them happy. You want to be able to tailor some of your services to the needs of your clients and the strengths of your company. Combining those two, that's what's going to make what works best. You see, in my example, you have two different parties with two different colors, but we're making sure that the needs of one counter the services and strengths of the other. That's a very important concept. A lot of times guys miss that, especially in the marketing side. Dick shares stories with me many times of very successful companies where there's just a little bit of a disconnect, where the company feels like they're so successful. And you know what their message is? Here's what I need. Can you fit my need? Guess what? That's not how it works. When you're a service company, you need to fit the needs of your clients. So a very important difference in the language that Dick works with many clients on is something more along the lines of, tell me what you need and I can see if I can help you, right? That's the square peg into the square hole instead of the square peg into the round hole. We want to make sure that what we can offer fits what they need. So that's why you need to make sure that you connect with your clients. Very important. So I keep saying that these things are relevant for everyone. If you're just a worker within a company, is there any reason why any of these 4 steps can't work for you as well? Absolutely not. These ultimately 7 steps are going to work 100% of the time for every single worker. They just apply differently for an individual worker that they do for an owner. But the same thing applies if you're a worker. If you're a marketer, all of these apply for you as well. Step 5, connect with your staff. This is a back and forth. Owners, you need to make sure that you are connecting with your staff. Every great leader knows that they need to be a motivator. They need to be inspiring others. There's leading by example, there's leading by doing, there's all sorts of leadership techniques. The greatest leaders are motivators and they're influencers. They're the ones who make others feel like they want to do good. That's a very important concept. Don't for a second think that every action you take within your company isn't noticed by someone else. How you dress, how you speak, how you present yourself to others, even if you're not talking to the guy in the warehouse, he sees that. If you're phony with your staff, they can see right through that. They see you when you're getting in and out of your car. They hear you when you're on your phone. You need to be the same person with them. You need to be genuine. Share your vision. I said this before, but it's so vitally important. You need to share your vision of what you want out of the company. That's your personal vision. I'm not saying sit there and put all those nice little mission statements up on a wall. That's important. But if the mission statement on the wall doesn't match who you are, nobody's going to believe either one. Share your vision. Even if their motivations are far different than yours, they will appreciate your honesty and they will respond accordingly. Remember, every relationship in business is a give and take. Every relationship. You working for your clients is a give and take. You're providing a service, they're going to pay you for it. You get referrals from your referral sources. That's a give and take. They give you a referral. You either have some sort of bartering relationship where you provide them with services in return, or you give them referral fees, whatever the deal is. There is a give and take. Guess what? Your relationship with your clients is the same give and take as your relationship with your employees. That work agreement is they give you work, you give them pay. If they can give you better work, they can get better pay. Guess what gives them the ability to provide you with better work? Exactly. Your ability to be honest with them, to let them know what your vision is, and then they can tailor their approach to exactly what you need. Remember the slide we just had? Connecting with your clients? Well, the same relationship applies here, connecting with your staff. If your staff knows you're driven by let's call it financial security, they're going to do things to make sure that you get your maximum amount of money because they know it's going to trickle down to them. That's part of the give and take. If they know that you really care about giving back to the community, there's a really good chance that if they're driven by greed, they're going to do a calculation in their head that says, well, I have a better chance of making more money if my owner does a community event on a Saturday and I show up and volunteer. See how transactional I just made that sound? It's kind of cold. But if they make you feel good, they have a better chance of getting paid. That's a win-win. Does anybody have a problem with win-win? I don't think you should. But it's a very important piece as we're putting these steps together and as you're trying to move towards your mission to connect with your staff. Along this path, you need to envision your future. And what I mean is you have to say to yourself, what do I want to be, or where do I want to be, or who do I want to be in 5 years? You can't just say, where do I want to be in 6 months? That's short term. That's not allowing that mission, that full vision goal to have any legs. Anybody could put something forth for 6 months, attain it, and it really doesn't even have to tie into any one of those core principles. Let's just say you have a very, very big trip plan for next February. You need to make sure that your company generates a lot of money for you so that you can have that great trip. You know, it's your anniversary, your 20-year anniversary. You want to take your wife somewhere special or your husband. Your motivating factor now is to make a lot of money in the next 6 months. You might be a person who all you want is to give back to the community, but for the next 6 months, you need money. So you're going to design something that's going to bring in money for the next 6 months. That's not designing your company around your core mission. So let's get that straight. Let's make sure we envision our long-term future. And then what do we have to do to get there? Every time I work with a client and we sit down and we start mapping things out, I do what I call the 1-3-5 plan. We design 3 separate goals. We design a 1-year goal, a 3-year goal, and a 5-year goal. And you know what we do? Every 6 months, we retweak the 3-year goal to reflect how well we've done towards our 1-year goal and to make sure that it stays in line with our 5-year goal. The 5-year goal doesn't get touched. That's our pinpoint. But the 3-year goal is the thing that every 6 months are the bumpers for our bowling alley. Those are the things that we're able to look at and say to ourselves, hey, let's take our assessment. Let's make sure we're staying on track. And the 1-year goals give us our short-term targets within the 5-year plan. So that's what I mean by envisioning your future. You should be able to look at your company today and say, where do I want it to be 1, 3, and 5 years from now? That's very important. And that's not something that I say is just in your head. No, every single process and every single marketing step that is taken today should be reflecting the direction of those 1, 3, and 5-year goals. Finally, step 7, satisfy your motivation. Part of what we talked about before, working hard in spurts and then taking time to assess and adjust, part of that is we also have to satisfy our motivation. We have to treat ourselves. Nobody can work 5 years towards a goal and say, I didn't take a vacation. I didn't put my phone down. If they're telling you that, they're lying. That's not realistic for business owners. For business owners, we all need the time to sit back and treat ourselves. We all need to make sure that we get to experience the fruits of our labor. So we need to take time. I've got examples on the bottom that tie into our 4 categories. If you're someone who's driven by your own ego, if you're someone who's a self-driven person, then you're going to be patting yourself on the back and you're going to do something good that makes you feel good about that. Who knows? You might take out an ad in a local trade publication, congratulating the company on a great 6 months. You know, that's all about patting yourself on the back. That's fine. If you're a profit guy, you're going to be screaming and you're going to be ecstatic and you're going to do something with that money. You might go out and buy yourself a hot sports car to be able to show everybody how much money you made. That's okay. That's fine. If you're telling everybody that's what you're about, nobody's going to be shocked or pissed off. They're just not. They're going to be like, oh, I guess we all did good. If you're that person who cares about giving back, you're going to take that 1 week and you might go do a mission trip, or you might be able to, volunteer at a soup kitchen for a full day. Those are the kinds of things you have to make sure you continue to do. Finally, if you're the one who cares about customer service, you might take yourself out of the office for a week and quote unquote, put yourself back out on the road. Or you might hold a drawing or a raffle for your clients. Or you might pick a client at random and do a really nice gift for them, or say, you know what, the next client that we have, we're going to do a certain upgrade in their kitchen on the repairs, and we'll give them free granite, let's just say. Oh, excuse me. You'll do something really nice for a client. Those are the things that you have to do to make sure you're satisfying your motivation. those little rewards along the way, I call them gas station stops. We're on a long cross country trip. None of us can make it across country without stopping for gas, stopping to refresh ourselves. That's what I kind of think of it as. It's still part of your mission. You're able to take that little time. And guess what? When it comes time to get back, you're refreshed. You're going to work harder than the last time. You're actually going to work better, harder, more efficiently, and with more purpose. And guys, at the end of the day, if we as owners, if we as managers, if we as workers can work harder, work more effectively, and work with more purpose than we did yesterday, isn't that really what it's all about? If you have any questions about this webinar, please feel free to drop Dick or myself an email or a text message. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. We love hearing from you guys. I want to thank you all for showing up today. I understand that there's a lot of things that can happen on a Tuesday morning if you're here with us live. And we really appreciate your continued support of everything we're doing here at the Crest Network. We love working with our members. We think that one of the most important things in the restoration industry is consistency of message and quality of product. And we've made it our mission here at Crest to make sure that we put out a consistent message, that we put out a great product, and we want to be able to help you have that same goal, whatever motivates you. Thank you so much, guys. On behalf of everyone here, I want to thank you, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.